Today is the 75th anniversary of VJ Day, a date that marks the Allied victory over Japan and the end of the Second World War. This is the scene in Halifax this morning, a more subdued ceremony amidst the pandemic. Attendees paused to mark the more than 1 million Canadians and Newfoundlanders who have fought in the war. The CBC's Brooklyn Curry is in Halifax with more.
Dozens of people were gathered at Halifax's Grand Parade Square this morning for the 75th anniversary of VJ Day, marking the victory over Japan and the end of the Second World War. Many were in full uniform, others were not, but there were some similarities between everyone's attire. Everyone had a poppy on their lapel and a mask on their face. Of course, organizing an event like this in the midst of a global pandemic does have its challenges, but the microphone was switched out after every speaker, and the chairs in the square were placed 6 feet apart. The event itself was broken up into 2 portions. The first was a commemorative portion, the second a poster unveiling for this year's Veterans Week. It started at 11 a.m. with the commemorative portion. The entry of the Boots of Remembrance was how it started, and that is all but 2 pairs of military boots laid out around the base of the cenotaph, and the remaining 2 pairs marched up by cadets and armed forces members and placed on either side of the wreath stand. Now that's meant to symbolize all the Canadians and Newfoundlanders who turned in their civilian shoes for boots of war. Veterans Affairs Minister Lawrence Macaulay spoke at the event. He even laid a wreath. He's got decades of experience in Veterans Affairs, and he says that getting to meet the men and women who fought in the wars has been the honor and privilege of his lifetime. He also says that celebrating and commemorating VJ Day, it's a legacy that Canadians should be proud of. The second portion, the poster unveiling, was honored with the family of the woman on the poster. That's Vicky Luscombe. She was a servicewoman driving her Jeep through the streets of Vancouver when news broke that peace had been made, and you can just see everyone jumping onto the Jeep and cheering in the photo that's on the poster. She could not make it today. She's in a long-term care facility in St. John's with her husband, who's also a veteran, but their son, Robert Luscombe, was here today on their behalf. He said if Vicky had been here, she would have been beyond thrilled, and his entire family is so grateful for the honor. Brooklyn Curry, CBC News, Halifax.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also marked the day. He praised veterans and remembered the lives lost. He also acknowledged a dark period in Canadian history. At home, the Second World War also marked a shameful episode in our history: the internment of Japanese Canadians following the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Over 20,000 Canadian citizens and residents were separated from their homes and their families, forced into internment camps. Today, we are reminded of the need to always fight against the spread of intolerance and racism wherever and whenever it occurs. Across the world, events are being held to commemorate this landmark anniversary. The red arrows flew high over Belfast earlier today. A UK-wide flypast had been scheduled to mark VJ Day, but performances in Cardiff and Edinburgh were cancelled because of bad weather. However, pilots did land in Glasgow to meet 3 Scottish veterans of the Second World War. And a short time from now, those iconic red planes are expected to take to the skies above London. CBC's Dominic Velitis has the latest on VJ Day ceremonies in England.
Commemorations here began in London at sunrise with a rendition of When the Battle's O'er, performed by a lone military piper on the deck of HMS Belfast, London's iconic Tower Bridge in the background there. And this was a scene played out by pipers in other countries marking VJ Day today, in India, Australia, New Zealand and Nepal. But back here in the UK, there was also a wreath-laying ceremony at the Cenotaph in central London, where the UK's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace was joined by military chiefs. After that, the focus shifted to Britain's National Memorial Arboretum, where a service of remembrance was held, and joining around 40 veterans was Prince Charles and his wife, the Duchess of Cornwall, who led the nation in a 2-minute silence, a brief period of reflection to remember the 71,000 UK and Commonwealth casualties of the war against Japan, including, of course, the 12,000 plus prisoners of war who died in Japanese captivity. Today, Prince Charles paid tribute to them. Here he is.
It seems to me to be vital that we remember all those who were so profoundly affected by this conflict, those who so gallantly served, a number of whom we are fortunate to have here amongst us, and those who gave and endured so much in so many other ways. To all of you, we owe the greatest debt of gratitude, which can never be fully repaid.
There was also a flypast courtesy of the Battle of Britain memorial flight, always a moving sight. Meanwhile, large screens placed all over the country will this weekend show a photo montage of veterans, among them Prince Philip, who was a young Royal Navy officer aboard a warship when Japan surrendered on September 2nd, 1945. Television is playing a central role in these commemorations, partly due to current social distancing measures. The BBC is running special coverage this evening, which will include a message from Prince William. And world leaders, including Canada's Justin Trudeau, today thanked veterans in a specially recorded video message, each saying in turn, to all who served, we thank you. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, Bristol.
Japan is also marking the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stressed the country's commitment to peace and vowed never to repeat the tragedy of war. Japan's emperor also expressed his deep remorse. They spoke at a scaled-back ceremony. Only 600 people attended. Thousands gathered at a controversial war shrine in Tokyo as well. It pays tribute to 2.5 million Japanese people killed in the war, but it also honors 14 wartime leaders, later convicted as war criminals.